welcome to my channel. I'm Rebecca. I'm a spiritual medium and animal communicator. I want to talk to you today about an energy that I've been picking up on over the last few weeks. And even though I'm on the spiritual pathway myself, I still have my human moments where I feel just exasperated by humanity and just trying to understand where some of these energies come from and to try and take a higher perspective and to see everything rather than just focusing in on these things. But this energy is a really toxic energy, and it's an energy that is like it seems to be like a shape-shifting energy is the way I'm feeling it. And it's masquerading as spirituality, it's masquerading as light, it's also masquerading as truth, and it's divide. What it really is divide. And I sat with it for a while to see where this energy is coming from, and a lot of it is actually still coming from fear. And I've spoken previously about fear. Fear comes in many different forms for people and for animals. And fear is when people are in a state of fear, they are much more easy and much more susceptible to being controlled and being manipulated. And it was really disappointing because a lot of this kind of shape-shifty energy that's coming through is actually happening in communities where people consider themselves awake and communities where people consider that they are on the spiritual path. And it's really, really toxic. And basically, they're dividing. So there's always been divide in the world, but they're trying to divide people. It's like an agenda within an agenda. It's a really hard way to describe it. But you know, like the little dolls that you get, and you have like the big one, and every time you open the doll, there's a smaller one and a smaller one and a smaller one inside until you get to the end and there's this tiny little doll. This is how this energy feels. It's an energy that's kind of wrapping itself up to appear in different ways across different communities. But when you take away the layers and you get down to it, there's this tiny little doll at the end. And it's an energy of both fear and control. And I found it kind of looking at it from an outside perspective. I found it both fascinating and just exhausting because in a lot of ways, we're talking about freeing ourselves. Everyone's talking about freeing themselves from the matrix and the control of those that, should not be in power. So we're all supposed to have this common goal of, living in harmony and everything being wonderful for everybody and equal for everybody. But there's been these little offshoots where people are now infiltrating those areas, the areas that were originally set up, the communities that were set up to come together, is now being infiltrated by this energy, which is, again, it's a fear energy. So it's putting fear into those groups of people in different ways. And it's also masquerading as, like, especially in the spiritual community, it's masquerading as, people will say, I'm coming at this from a place of light, or I'm coming at this from a place of love. And actually they're not. What they're doing is they're trying to put that over the top of it to wrap it up all nicely, and then they're proceeding to, whether knowingly or unknowingly, to say things that are coming from their own place of fear or perhaps, anger, frustration, and they're projecting it out and wanting others in that, in that community to go along with it. And when they don't go along with it, then you'll get the mask will slip and you'll see what they're really about. And it's just kind of sad because it's incredibly toxic. And there are a lot of people who perhaps aren't walking the spiritual path yet, or they are just kind of stepping onto it. They feel that maybe there's more to life, but they're not entirely sure what. And this can be very damaging to them because if they find themselves being a part of one of these communities where they feel like it's a safe haven and, you know, people will understand me. And then they're being told certain things and treated in this way, and having this kind of shapeshifty energy that's going to then say to them, you know, you're meant to have come into this place that's a safe space where we're all on the path for the same end. But then they're being told, well, if you do that, you're not spiritual. If you do this, you're not spiritual. And we can all have our own opinions. It's very important. I've said it before, and it's in everything, especially now. Discernment is so important. People align with different people, and that's fine. You have to go where your energy and your vibration takes you, but you have to be really, really aware of what you're surrounding yourself with, what you're involving yourself in. And if you're feeling afraid, look at why that is. Don't project your fear onto someone else by doubting them or trying to make them doubt what they do, because that's very toxic. That's you're projecting your stuff onto them, and that isn't right. So feel what comes up for you, but be very aware when you're interacting, especially in these kind of communities that label themselves as, you know, spiritual, awake, when they're outwardly labeling themselves, wrapping it all up all nicely. Is it genuine? Is it coming from a genuine place of love? Or are these more communities, more people that are either seeking to control, whether it's through manipulation, greed, or fear, or are they simply trying to get you to change your views to fit into their views? And again, we're all experiencing the world very differently, and so we can't be molded into someone else's view. To do that is to stifle our own creativity, it's to stifle our own life experience. So it's really about being very aware. But something really funny that happened to me the other day was a conversation that I had. And I don't know if any of you have been on this path a while, or it might even be something that you've suddenly become aware of recently. Let me know if you've experienced this. And I was having a conversation, and this person was, you could feel the energy. They were coming from a place of fear, and it was like a personal fear. So it was personal fear, which is absolutely fine. It was a personal fear deep within them that is something that they have to address and work through and understand. But the whole conversation was a projecting conversation, and it was really odd because I initially I was a bit kind of like, you know, when you get that, yeah, okay, no, this isn't my, you know, that might be what your reality is. This isn't my reality. And so I had that human moment with it. But then it was really funny because it was like my guides took me back many years ago to my very early 20s. And they were showing me a conversation I'd had where I was that person that was actually speaking to a friend from that place. And actually, many elements of this conversation I was having now were actually elements that had happened that I had forgotten about in this other conversation when I was much younger. And it was suddenly like, as I was shown this in the middle of this conversation, it suddenly all made sense to me. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm seeing how I previously had this, but how I've done this work to now find myself in a different place where I'm comfortable with what I know to be true. I'm comfortable with, you know, using my discernment to navigate my way through, you know, where I place my energy. And it was like this light bulb moment of, oh, okay. And it was a real teaching moment because for me, it was like, remember, you've been there too. You were once here. And so it allowed me that moment of kind of completely taking nothing personally anymore from it and just understanding I was once here too. This is something that has to play out for this person. They will go through this journey, they will navigate it, they will figure out why they felt like that, and then someday soon they will be in another position where they will see this and they will no longer have those issues. They will have worked through them. So it's about letting people have that space to do that, and also remembering that nothing is personal. Now, while I don't agree with, you're having a bad day and you take it out on somebody else and they should just understand that that's not personal, I don't agree with that. I think we are all responsible for our own actions. And so it's up to you. If you are having a bad day and you have to interact with other people, animals, things in the real world, you are mindful of how you're presenting. And that's not to say covering up your emotions, because there'll be people that are like, well, you just don't want people to show their emotions. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is go about it in a better way. So if you have to queue for a long time in a shop because it's really busy and you're having the worst day, so many things have happened. Perhaps something terrible happened at work, something's happened in your personal life, perhaps something's broken in the house that now you've got to wait for a repair. You've got all these things going on and you just feel really fed up and angry that life is really hard today. And you've queued for ages in this shop and you're really fed up. And by the time you get to the till, you're not in the mood for anything. You just want to be gone. And so when the, perhaps the person doesn't say, have you had a good day? Perhaps they say to you, did you find everything you were looking for? And that literally triggers you because no, you didn't, and you're having the worst day. And how stupid of you to ask me this. Rather than being rude to the shop assistant and unleashing all that anger, be mindful that they have no idea what's going on in your life. You're having a terrible time, and acknowledge all the feelings, but don't blast it out there onto people that have nothing to do with it. They didn't cause it. They're completely unaware of you and your situation, because you're then going to make them have a terrible day. So I'm not saying don't feel things. I'm saying be mindful of how you show up in the world, while remembering everyone has things going on in their lives and nothing is ever personal. It's not, it's the way that they're perceiving the world. Their experience of the world will vary to yours. So when somebody says to you, it's not a big deal, you could say to them, rather than biting their head off, you could just say to them, actually, to me, it is a big deal. And if they then still kind of say, well, no, it isn't, you're being ridiculous, then just disengage, because you're obviously, like I was saying earlier, you're not at that stage of understanding where you can do that on an energy level. So there's no point continuing it for either of you. But in this moment that I had, Spirit was like, it's a mirror moment. And I was like, yes, that makes perfect sense. A mirror moment. And I think that what's happening right now is a lot of this that's coming up to the surface are mirror moments. People are being shown areas in their lives where they need to look at. They're having things reflected back to them from, things that they need to learn, or perhaps they need to learn to navigate. And perhaps they aren't on a spiritual path. So what it's doing is triggering them, making them angry or fearful. And because they're not understanding that this is a mirror moment and it's something for you to understand and, move through and heal, they're just going into this angry energy, which is then making them want to kind of double down and control not only their own lives, but control the views of others. And it's just really messy. It just feels like a big, messy, emotional soup energy that's going on. And following on from this, I was shown, Spirit said to me, I think it's time for a spiritual appraisal. And I was shown how if you have ever worked for a big company, you've worked in an office, you will know that you will have once every 6 months or once a year, you will have an appraisal, which is usually a meeting with you and your line manager or your boss, and you'll sit down and you'll discuss any areas in the role that you're doing where you've performed well, areas where you're perhaps struggling, that you can talk about that you're struggling and see if they can assist you, but also areas where they think you might need to focus a bit more to improve. And it's funny because it's something that I've always done. I do it naturally anyway. At the end of every day, I give myself a little appraisal of like, okay, what did I learn today? Where did I react in ways that perhaps weren't in alignment with, the tools I have, the things I know to do? Where can I improve? What can I do tomorrow to improve on this and to be better? It's something I've done, and I can't remember when I started doing it. I've done it for many years because it helps me to stop and take an inward look at myself and assess what's gone on in the day. How have I shown up in the world? What am I learning? Have I grown? Something that might have happened, like that conversation I'm telling you about, was it personal? What did I learn? What did I understand? And Spirit are saying we all need to be carrying out a spiritual appraisal on ourselves, because we're still, humanity is still looking outside of ourselves. They're looking outside of ourselves for a savior. No one is coming to save us. We have to work together to make the world a better place together. But we're also looking outside of ourselves to place the blame on people, and there are a lot of controlling mechanisms in our life, in the systems that we are within, but we still do have an element of control within that. We have been programmed to believe that we don't, but once we start looking into it and stepping back into our own power, you will see that actually it's not just one way. There are other ways, and there's always going to be methods to navigate things and to learn and to grow, and then you can share that with other people and to assist them. And we just need to stop. We need to take a moment, because right now it's so loud out there, and it's loud everywhere. It's loud, it's loud in the people that are still wanting to control everyone. They're kind of fighting their last, the last throes of their power, and so they're screaming louder and louder. But then you've got the people in the communities that are supposed to be coming together, that are fighting amongst themselves. This person's a savior, and then they're like, oh no, they're not. This person's the enemy. Oh no, they're not. And there's this infighting. And the funny thing I've noticed is people are very easy to dismiss. So if it's somebody, for example, if it's somebody that you think is a really good person on the world stage, that is, they're here to help us, they're saving us, they're doing all these great things. While that may be true, there may be a lot of really good things about them, because remember, everyone has, let's say good and bad, because it's not, but different aspects of their character. The minute that this person might do something that is outwardly very questionable, people will be, the people that really love them and want them to be everything and want them to be perfect, people will be really quick to, make up an excuse. Oh no, it's being done because of this. Oh, you're so stupid. Why can't you see that that's nothing? Yeah, if it was somebody else that did it, the person or people that are perceived by many as being the baddies, if they did it, off to the gallows. It's that kind of energy. And it's really weird to me, seeing it from an outside point of view as an observer. I find it so bizarre that people are still in this, they're in this fixed, they're all good or they're all bad. And they are unwilling to move on that. If they've made their mind up, and I'm seeing it a lot with some high profile people, things have come out about them, and they may have been, people may have absolutely adored them and looked up to them, and things have come out about them, and it's almost like the people aren't willing to see it. They've put their fingers in their ears. La la la, doesn't exist. That can't be true. They don't want to know. Whereas if it was someone else that they don't like, and something comes out about them, they're straight on it. Oh well, I knew that person was terrible. It's very bizarre to me to be watching it, because it just shows that while there are vast amounts of people waking up and seeing things from a higher perspective and genuinely wanting to come together, there are still people that are operating from control and from fear, just in different ways, and people that are unwilling to see. And I was watching something. It was a crime TV show. It's quite an old show. I can't remember what it was called now. I was watching it a few weeks back, and I can't fully remember the story of this episode, but it was basically someone who was like, they were a really terrible person. They were like a criminal. They'd done a lot of bad things. But throughout the episode, something happened. Something with a person close to them had happened. And decisions had to be made around this person. And so this person who'd like done all these bad things finally said, this should be the course of action. And it was the kindest, most kind of like, they'd considered everything before they made this decision. And they made this really kind decision about this other person, which was completely bizarre because they'd been so terrible and they'd done all these evil crimes. And I remember the scene in the courtroom, and the person, one of the, I think it was the prosecutor, said it was the wrong person, but it was the right decision. And that has stuck with me. So we have to be open to seeing all sides of everything, and to understand that even though we perceive people as being, wonderful, I have a real problem with people on the world stage being, people kind of fawning over them and idolizing them. I think that's wrong. But again, people do what they want to do. That's their experience. But we have to be open to understanding that you might have someone over here that's always appeared to do the right thing on the surface, has always been great, lovely, wonderful. Something terrible comes out about them. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a lie. Again, there's a lot of manipulation out there. Could be a lie. Use your discernment. But if it turns out to be true, let's not dismiss it just because we love these people and think they're great and they've done a lot of good. We have to separate the two. The same as if we've had someone that has done a lot of bad things. Maybe they've learned. Perhaps they actually are on an inward journey and they have learned and they've decided to turn their lives around. And now they've done something really good. So that really stuck with me. And I think that you could perhaps use that as well to think when you're seeing these kind of things, especially on the world stage or even in your own personal life, you could perhaps think about those words, that maybe it's the wrong person, but the right decision. So whether we like somebody on a personal level or not, it doesn't mean they aren't doing good in the world. It doesn't mean they aren't doing bad in the world, but we have to be able to use our discernment and to see the whole picture and to allow people to grow and to change. Because imagine if that happened to you. Imagine if you were only ever known by the things you'd previously done. What if you didn't perform well in a job because you were learning and you hadn't got to grips with what you were meant to be doing, and you stuffed it up royally, you cost the company a lot of money, and you ended up leaving because it became really stressful and you didn't do well, and they said to you, we don't think that you should be in this role anymore, and so you left. Imagine if every single job you went for after that, they had a little notebook and they went, oh, you're the person that did this and you worked there, and no, sorry, you might do it again. What if that happened to you in real life? This is what we do to other people. We dismiss people. And I've done it in the past. I've absolutely done it in the past. There are people who I really haven't gelled with on the world stage. I've really not liked their energy. And then, in the last few years, I might have heard them speaking and something has caught my eye of like, you should listen to this. And I've listened and I've been surprised and I've thought, wow, I actually really learned something new from them. We just have to be open-hearted, open-minded. And we aren't always going to agree, but we don't need to have this horrible energy of like making, trying to question people, question the way people work, questioning people's understanding of the world, making out they're stupid, dividing even more. We don't need that. That's not the energy that we're supposed to be working towards. We're supposed to be bringing everyone along for the ride in a world that is truly unified And be careful. I've noticed a lot. There's a lot of rubbish that gets put out online, and I don't know whether it's bots. I don't know. It's probably a mixture of lots of things. And I do think there are people that do really enjoy just kind of like stirring the pot, seeing the reaction from both sides and sitting back and laughing at the kind of unrest that they cause with their words. But just be careful when you read things especially about certain groups. Don't always jump on it and think this must be true because I read it here or I heard it here. Think, how does it make me feel? Does this feel like something that could be true? Because I'm seeing that there's a lot of people that will put something out and then suddenly an entire group of people, be it a belief system, a religion, a nationality, are being sent this awful negative energy, and everyone's assuming that they're all the same. Well, that's absolutely stupid, because we're not all the same, are we? We're all experiencing life differently. So while we may have some shared values and shared understanding, it doesn't mean that we're all the same. It absolutely doesn't. And we really have to start looking at things on a deeper level and not just assuming things are correct because somebody that we think highly of on the world stage said it, or because this is a trusted source that has always reported on these kind of things. Everything is open to corruption. It is up to us to protect and filter our energy, to seek out the truth, to call it out when it's not the truth, and to come together and be willing to learn, rather than this horrible gaslighting energy of, superiority as well, dulling each other down and just being horrible. It's a real takedown energy at the moment, and it's really not nice. I saw something awful last week on X, and it's a group run by, I don't know if it's one woman or several women, but it's literally, the whole account is about putting down other women, slagging other women off. And I'm like, what is this? We're supposed to be coming together. Why are people doing this? They want to tear each other down. And the thing I just keep coming back to is, it's easier to tear other people down because then you're not looking at yourself. Perhaps have a look at yourself. And that is where, when my guide said we all need a spiritual appraisal. Sit down with yourself at the end of the day. Look at where you're doing really well and praise yourself for that. Look at where you need to improve, and look at the areas where perhaps you don't understand yet, but you are willing to open your heart and your mind. I'll leave that with you today. It's just something I feel quite passionate about at the moment, because, I'm seeing it in the wider world, but I've experienced it in my own life. I'm very aware of the need for us to all use our discernment and be aware of what's going on without becoming completely absorbed into it, because we don't need that. We need to be looking and understanding and growing and helping others to grow as well, and knowing when to step into things and knowing when to step back and look inward. I'll leave that with you today. I thank you for listening. If you do like my work, please do like, share, comment and subscribe. If you are interested in my animal communication work and hearing what the animal kingdom and the wisdom of Mother Earth has to say, please follow me over on my other YouTube channel, which is The Words of the Wild. If you would like to book a one-to-one session with me for yourself or for your animal companions, all of my details are linked on my channel. You can find information on my website about how my sessions work, and I offer remote sessions worldwide. Thanks for listening. I'll speak to you again soon. Take care.